Love. Love. Love is the almighty power our world needs, sourced right now by all who call it home. In ruminating about this sermon, I realized that the political discourses I'm so virulent about actually have made me a useful idiot for Russia. By being a righteous soul whose discourse is strident, I am no better than anyone that I'm throwing rocks at on the other side. I'm fomenting the ongoing diatribes that are ripping our nation apart. As a UU, how can that sit with what I stand for? How did I even forget the roots from where I came? Perhaps, the best way to create understanding is to own who I am and share it with you people. People just want and need to be heard. And aren't we, the people and the place, for just that? My name is Matthew. And I have three brothers, and they are named in order: Mark, Luke, and, thank you. My parents' names are Fred and Yolanda. It always blows that people are waiting for Mary and Joseph or something, you know? Our parents were of the mind that we should be acculturated, and so we were raised as white and brought here to Newbury Park in 1968. My days in elementary school were, as hard as it is to believe, being the class clown, lead in all school productions, and in the 6th grade, the school president. In high school, I excelled again in class clownery, as well as the lead in many productions, and also was accidentally subjected to public speaking classes where I took like a duck to water and became enamored with speech competitions. In my junior year, I was elected to be the student representative to the Conejo Valley School Board of Education. That was a hoot. And in my senior year as the ASB president. Needless to say, upon my graduation, any number of the adults at the school and the administration were relieved to see me off. When I was 18, my father, director of operations for a small nonprofit for individuals who were then called retarded at the time, asked me to help him staff a house with 6 men. What wasn't expressed to me at the time was why the staff was gone. They had been pummeled by one of the clients that morning for waking them. But my father failed to tell me that. He was devious like that. Oddly enough, though, it all worked out. I spent many a year in various positions, finally becoming the director of operations for just over a decade at what became a much larger organization. My time there saw me rather become a self-absorbed, for lack of a better term, SOB, who ran roughshod over a number of folks. One thing led to another, and I found myself reinventing my soiled persona at Landmark Education, where I spent years becoming a more humbled soul that loved the idea of personal growth and development and recreating a relationship with my mom that I had demolished. Ultimately, I moved on to work at the City of Los Angeles' Commission for Children, Youth, and Families, and for a few years, and then became part of the U.S.-China Environmental Fund for a decade, living in Asia most of the time as their operations director in the Sichuan province outside of Chengdu. My time there had me appreciate nature in a more dynamic way than I'd ever had before, wandering in wild terrains, bamboo forests, snowbound mountains, with the wind whistling as the background music. Interfacing with world-class scientists that worked with panda populations and other flora and fauna specialists that gave me an amazing background to matters I had no idea even existed. When we were back at the base of operations, my translator would disappear on me and force me to have to figure things out on my own. And I came to terms with a lovely people, the Tibetan Chinese, who were running scrappy businesses or were for the most part subsistence farmers, making less than $3,000 US a year. They were doing farming cabbage, turnips, and corn. Indeed, their hogs ate better than they did. Vegetable scraps were boiled into a stew of sorts twice a day for their nourishment. The farmers lived in glorified stick huts with no electricity and no way to keep warm other than some meager coal rations and wood or sleeping together. And yet, their spirits were always incredibly high, and they would offer you whatever meager stores they had if you came by if you were hungry. All this was contrasted by the world in Chengdu, a massive city of 20 million living in a sprawl that made Los Angeles look like Mayberry. People were packed in all the buses, subway trains, sidewalks. Lines in China were not abided by. No. I learned a great deal about the capacity of love and forgiveness during my time there. China is a nation which is atheist, and Han are the majority population there, with many minority peoples. I have traveled many places: Australia, Europe, Mexico, Canada, Indonesia, India, New Zealand, and across the US, and until 2016 considered myself to be a pretty tolerant soul. When I agreed to work on the last service of 2019 concerning awe, I was resolute that it would be on nature, flora and fauna, things which I find great peace and joy in. But in reading Times article about Greta Thunberg, their Person of the Year, I knew that a larger lens needed to be accessed. What the world needs in the face of all that is occurring is love. Yes, that may seem like an odd conclusion. Matt, we need to stop the various chemicals that are bringing the end of the world ever quicker to our door. Love? I got it. But we can see that telling people this, the need to stop the chemicals, has created a massive backlash with a large portion of the population. What are we going to do? Are we going to get a bigger bat that the smaller bat wasn't able to convince them of? In all my travels of the people that I have met, whether they were Chinese, Tibetans, Han, Uyghurs, Aussies, Canadians, Indonesians, Kiwis, Brits, and others, the nature of their humanity and need for happiness was something that everyone strived for in their various ways without much sense of polarizing others in the process. Our present social unrest reminds me of Dr. Seuss's parable of the Sneetches, where one set of folks have stars upon bars and consider themselves better than those that don't. Our present trajectory, if we follow it logically, is tragic. Not just from climate change, but from the poisonous political and social polarities that we have cloaked ourselves in as the forces of light versus the forces of dark. The nature of being right, righteous, correct, enlightened, whatever variation you like, makes the other. One to be fought, one to be dominated, one to be scorned, and one to be destroyed. My time with folks who were developmentally delayed showed me that they are truly peaceful people, loving, accepting. There is no right. There is just pure joy. This harkens me back to a movie called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, a story concerning the origins of Francis of Assisi. And if you have an atheist up here talking about Francis of Assisi, you should really think about that. If you have never seen this movie, I highly recommend it. Zeffirelli enchants us with his vision of this man whose source is an incredible font of love. Perhaps as something to consider as a possibility. At some level, we are the mentally challenged ones who could use a new perspective. The tenor of many wiser souls have advocated the gospel of love. Why do we consistently abdicate the nature of this awe-inspiring avenue that Jesus, Gandhi, King, and our faith declares? As J. Abernathy stated, we affirm that love is our greatest purpose. Accepting one another is the truest form of faithful living. The search for truth is our constant star. We pledge our hearts, our minds, our hands to challenge injustice with courage and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus, we do covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. I don't have the answers. But aren't answers just a booby prize? I invite all of us, as we step into a new decade, to consider a new way of looking at the world, a new way of being with those that we oppose and that may oppose us. Will it work? We won't know unless we try.